It's episode 22 of the Toadstool Boardroom for the week of November 2nd, 2022. My name's Logan Plant, joined this week by Chris Schreiber.
Hello.
Welcome back, Chris.
Thank you. I'm not dead, despite what I told you on Twitter. I just felt like I was dying.
Sick, but back. Odell Harmon Jr. not with us this week. Instead, we have a very special guest. Introduce yourself, mystery third person here on the show.
Hi, I'm Aaron McDevitt. I am the lead developer, solo developer so far of Aero GPX, and happy to be here to discuss my game, and it looks like some F-Zero stuff on the list, so should be a bunch of fun.
Yeah, welcome, Aaron. Really happy to have you. Aaron and I have known each other for about a year now. When I saw Aero GPX on Twitter, and we talked, and there's a feature up on IGN about his game that you can check out. And recently, Aaron, your game went on Kickstarter, about 12 days to go in the campaign, and you're fully funded, so congratulations. That was really awesome to see.
Thank you. Kind of insane. I'm still reeling from how well that first, 4 or 5 days went, so it's kind of all icing on the cake from here on out. It's amazing. Really, it's all I can say.
You've been working on this game for 3 years now, so how did it feel when in 3 days' time it got fully funded?
It's one of those things that's on such like a grand scale that I've been kind of, thinking might happen for so long that I don't think it's still fully registered in my brain, but it has been 3.5 years of a lot of effort, a lot of learning and development that's kind of built to this. So it's just kind of it's an indescribable feeling, but it's mostly good.
Yeah, so we're going to talk about Aero GPX a lot here in the first half of the show. Then we're going to get into a little bit of an F-Zero retrospective, talk about the series, kind of chronological order, start to finish, and the long 18 years since the last official entry in the series. And then we're going to get to our email segment to wrap up the show. So let's get into it. Aero GPX, Chris has played the demo. I've played a ton of the demo over the last couple of weeks or so. But let's hear from Chris first. I know you're an F-Zero GX fan. You like those older ones. What do you think of playing Aero GPX with your first experience with it?
Oh, it's like coming home. I mean, I haven't, every now and then you get nostalgic, right? And like now at least we can say that about F-Zero GX. Like it is a bit of an older title at this point. But coming into this game, it's just such a relief seeing like it. There have been so many different types of F-Zero likes that have come out over the years. Like you have a Wipeout, like Wipeout is one, Redout, and Fast RMX all come to mind. And they're all games that like I would dabble with for like an hour. And they just didn't have that flair. What we're seeing of the character art, through the Kickstarter campaign and everything like that. Like it just feels like it has a lot more of that cyberpunky like DNA that F-Zero was kind of known for. And I'm super excited to see where it all goes. I really like it's like so weird. I really like throughout the demo, like all the different, like this is where I would put the celebration page if I had one, and like all those like, little nods
all
and things
true.
like that.
All true.
But yeah, I'm absolutely loving my time with the game.
Awesome.
Yeah, I've played a lot of F-Zero likes also, and I think that most of them come down on the side of the fence of being a lot more like Wipeout than F-Zero.
Yep.
And so when I played this game for the first time, I'm like, man, you just nailed it. It is so F-Zero X and GX specifically, not really the other more classic 2D ones, which we'll talk about a little later. It's very much in that home console vein. Man, Aaron, how'd you do it? How did you nail a game that feels so close to that original source material?
A lot of it was just kind of painstaking detail orientation to like the nth degree. I can't even describe how, like, in those early days, how much time I spent just going frame by frame through footage of both F-Zero X and F-Zero GX, just like frame by frame, just seeing like emulators came in handy too. Like I would emulate and go frame by frame through the games and just kind of like, okay, so this is how it responds whenever I move the analog stick this much on this vehicle. But it's just mainly kind of a trial and error process too at the end of the day, where like I would try something, I would like edit the physics of my game or tweak a little thing in the handling, okay, that doesn't feel right. Like that's the main thing that I can just say is just going by feel and having those 3 years to kind of build upon it and just figure out what felt the best, what felt like home, like Chris said, and kind of just try and hammer it down and really hone in on those specific little things, which is, I think, just boils all the way down to like how responsive the game feels whenever you move the analog stick. Like, that's the main thing, is just making it respond instantly to your input and just kind of going from there, building from there.
Yeah, and something I really like about this game, and I think it says as much on your Kickstarter page, is that your only weapon in Aero GPX is your ship, and that's something I always really loved about F-Zero. And when these other games introduce power-ups, it's like make it feel a little more like Mario Kart than kind of the you're in control, kind of the less luck-infused gameplay of F-Zero. So I really like that part about it. But you're also introducing a lot of new techniques. There's like the drill diving in the air, which just looks absolutely insane. People on Twitter are already breaking some of the courses from the demo you put out. They're like shattering times that I thought would have been possible. So talk about some of the advanced techniques and how you kind of brainstormed those in Aero GPX.
So they are, again, sort of iterations on things that you could do in F-Zero. In a lot of ways, I think I've made the techniques more approachable. But mainly, yeah, the drill dives, whenever I was thinking initially about how to add a big twist or a big spin on the formula that we all, know and love, I was like, okay, F-Zero, it does jumps, and being in the air does play a big part in F-Zero games. I think that is another thing that's kind of unique about F-Zero's, flavor of anti-gravity racing. So I was like, how about I just take that to the next level and I add in something like, the slipstreams that you can fly in all directions through, up and down, left and right. You can dive in and out of them. And I was looking for ways to just spice that up and make it more fun, and I just came back around to watching old F-Zero X time trials and world records and stuff, because there's a couple of specific techniques in that game, the double tap dives and the diagonal dives in particular, where you go up into the air and you commit to an angle, you do this crazy like analog stick input that I can't do anymore because I've lost it in my years of age. I used to be able to do it, but now I can't. But I was like, that's super badass. I'd like to have something like that in my game. It's kind of a natural step, a natural thing to add in since I'm throwing in so many airborne aspects to the game. So I started kind of prototyping it and working with it, and it just kind of grew from there. And it's I think one of the more fun parts of Aero GPX that allows you to build a ton of speed, and it's a cool little risk reward thing too, since you have to kind of commit to a diving angle and stuff. So it looks flashy. I like it. That's a big part of what I've added, and then I've also got like the hyper sliding, which you pull the triggers in a particular way and you can slide and drift and build speed around corners and stuff. So I have tried to add in a couple of really fun things that'll keep more avid fans of the genre a bit more busy with learning the game and really optimizing it and going as fast as they possibly can. That should be fun. The spin grind, where you do the spin attack and you strafe against a wall, you'll build a bunch of speed. So I've put in a ton of little things in there to allow people to like race on a razor's edge and have a lot of fun building speed and going as fast as they can.
What's it been like seeing people play your game after you worked on it, kind of toiling away on it your own for so long, and then to see it out there in the wild?
It's awesome. I'm glad. I'm very fortunate to have made something that seems to resonate with people. People are enjoying it, which makes it a lot easier to kind of listen to feedback and see what people are saying about the game. But it's honestly been amazing to see as many people play it and share their thoughts about it. It's a great feeling, because I have been kind of working on this for over 3.5 years now, mostly solo. I put out a couple of like little pre-alphas and like testing things that some people got their hands on back in the day, but for the most part there hasn't been very much like feedback or very many hands-on. So it's been an amazing experience getting the demo out there and seeing people absolutely destroy my best times. That's been fun. Like, I don't know if it's like a side of masochism in me or something, but it's been so fun seeing people blow away my best times. Like, I'm no longer the best in the world at my own game. Weird to say, but and B, getting a lot of useful feedback. You know, people saying things like, "Hey, I love most of the game, but I think these little things could use tweaks," and it's been extremely useful because I'm a solo dev so far. So there are blind spots that I have that having other people get their hands on and shed light on has been extremely useful. But for the most part, yeah, it's been awesome seeing people play the game and have fun with it. So I'm pumped. I'm so glad to have the demo out, and I'm just kind of over the moon with the reaction so far.
In terms of like your what like it, I feel like it would take a certain type of mentality to get, like, I'm a huge Banjo-Kazooie fan, right? And like nobody's really done much with that franchise or that style of game like in a very long time. Mario Odyssey's kind of close to it, but I would love to have the ability to like put on the Infinity Gauntlet like Thanos and be like, fine, I'll do it myself. Like, what brought you to that point where it was like, well, Nintendo's not making this this game in a franchise that I love so much? Like, what drove you to finally say, you know what, I'm going to do this?
Well, actually, I think like a lot of indie game projects, it started out where I was floating around between like, you know, 8 or 9 different project files because I had been working with Unreal Engine 4 for like 2.5, 3 years up until that point. And then before that, I had been working with like Unreal Development Kit. I was modding maps into Unreal Tournament 2K4. So like I'd known my way around the Unreal Engine for a while, but I was just kind of looking because I wanted to take that step into like actual game development and possibly be an indie dev. And I was just floating around between like 8 or 9 different project files. And one day I was like, hey, I really like F-Zero. I really like Wipeout. There hasn't really been a game like F-Zero since like GX back on the GameCube. It's not an easy it's not a game that's easy to experience nowadays. Like, you either got to emulate it or you got to play it on like original hardware, which both things you got to jump through hoops to do if you want to do it legally. So I was like, you know what? I might as well just kind of fire up another project file and see just how difficult it would be to like make a game similar to F-Zero. Turns out it's really hard, by the way. It's extremely hard. But anyway, yeah, it was basically just, I want to give this a shot. Let's see what it's like. Let's see what math I need to learn. It was a lot of math. And it was just, it was born from experimentation, but there was this eureka moment where I was like, okay, it's starting to feel really good. I'm honestly seeing a lot of potential in this. I think I started posting a couple of short little videos on like Twitter back in 2019, and even those, whenever I had like 0 following, were getting a significant bit of traction. And I was like, I think it's time to kind of buckle down, plant my feet, and really start working on a full game and try and flesh this out and make it into something that kind of respects its roots and wears its inspiration on its sleeve, but, you know, modernizes it, brings it to PCs, modern devices, and allows people to experience like this specific type of racing, of arcade racing at the very core that, you know, is not really easy to experience anymore. So yeah, it just kind of started with a project file and a hope and a dream that maybe I would be able to figure it out.
That's awesome. I mean, in terms of like your development experience, like, were you doing something at, you know, some like random small dev shop, or are you self-taught? Like,
no, this is all self-taught.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I never went to school for game design or game development in particular. I did go to college for computer science, but that's my only formal education whenever it comes to things like this. And anything game development related, has always been, hobby since I was like 8th grade in junior high onward.
Wow, that's great. Very, very
So
cool.
was there ever any moment during development of learning all this math or learning how to do all these things that you kind of hit a wall or really had to, get over a hump to keep the project going?
Quaternions. That's the answer right there. A 4-dimensional way of representing 3-dimensional rotations. I still only have a layman's understanding of quaternions, but that was the first really big wall that I hit.
What is that? Like a layman's, if you had to give like the elevator pitch of what that is. Because I've never even heard that phrase before, or that word.
So normally whenever you think about a rotation, like you've probably heard roll, pitch, and yaw, right?
Yeah.
So those are Euler rotation like values, roll, pitch, yaw. Well, quaternions have a 4th value, referred to as, in most places, at least in Unreal Engine, it's referred to as W, just the letter W. But the other 3 values, they're just letters too. I forget what they are in Unreal Engine even, because I don't go diving into the data structure very often. But basically, it's 4 values to represent a rotation instead of just 3, and allows you to avoid something called gimbal lock, which whenever you go to rotate an object in a game, if you're doing it in the Euler rotation way with just the 3 values, it has to do one after the other. So it'll like roll the object, it'll pitch it, and then it'll yaw it. And there's just like certain angles and certain things that once you hit them, like it kind of locks up. And Euler rotations just can't handle it. They're just like, okay, this is like way beyond me. I'm struggling. I'm locked up.
Okay.
Fix me. And Unreal Engine only has Euler rotations by default. So I had to dive in back then into C++ code, which I had not really dabbled with very much up until that point. And then I also had to kind of explore the black box of quaternions, which I still don't fully understand. But yeah, that was, I would say, the first really big wall that I hit was quaternions. And I think a lot of game developers will say the same thing. Because I think in Unity, like the other, really big engine that indie devs use, I think quaternions are the default. So you just kind of have to hit that wall like immediately. So I was spoiled with Unreal for a while, but then I did have to learn. I did have to do my due diligence and learn quaternions.
Man.
That's impressive.
I give
know
you
so little about how games actually work,
I give
Chris.
you credit. Like, it's the type of thing where I like to think that I can do. Like, I'm in systems engineering, so like IT work all day, and I like to think I can figure certain things out. But like, I applaud you and anybody that does game development, especially like you coming from like a hobby space and everything like that, and sticking with it. Because if it was me, I'd be like, I don't know what the hell's going on. Just throw my hands up and walk away.
I'm stupid enough to bash my head against the brick wall until I break through the other side. That's like the way I've always put it. Like, that's the only thing that keeps me driven about learning so many different things that you have to learn as like a solo dev. Is like I'm apparently obsessed with just bashing my head against that brick wall.
That's great. That's great. So that's a good dive into some of the more technical side of things. Let's talk about some of the set dressing to your game, music and character design, character profiles. I know that you're partnering with a couple other creatives to get that stuff done. So
yeah, I am partnering with 2 people as of right now, and I am ridiculously excited about it. In fact, Myron, the musician that I'm partnering with, who I've wanted to partner with since day one, he actually just sent me a new song earlier. I haven't listened to it yet, so
awesome.
I'm pumped to listen to that. But no, I'm super excited. Myron is an excellent musician. He's absolutely perfect for the project. I kind of mentioned earlier, he's been in my sights since day one. Like, in fact, my original elevator pitch, once I started running with it, was F-Zero-like game with its own twist, that basically works as a Myron soundtrack delivery system. So, yeah, I'm super pumped about him. Nori, I am a little bit less familiar with because I've only been following him on like social media and stuff for like a year and a half now, I would say. He lives over in Scotland, but I absolutely love his work. His art style is beautiful. He does a lot of amazing graphic novel work that I thought would be absolutely perfect for the type of vibe I'm trying to go with Aero GPX. So he'll be absolutely perfect for the pilot art and the promo art. And whenever I initially emailed him, he actually said F-Zero is really special to him and he's pumped to start working on pilot designs and stuff too. So it's going to get real wacky and cool with those. We're going to have a lot of fun. Yeah, I couldn't be more happy with the two people that decided to be a part of Aero GPX so far. I'm pumped.
And are you kind of helping decide what the character bios and backstories are going to be like, or are you leaving that up to your artist?
I have a bunch I've got my own like sort of lore Bible thing that I've been actually for the last like week or so I've been paying a lot more attention to and fleshing out since the game is funded. I haven't really worried about that type of stuff up until now. I've actually really been hammering down exactly what I want to be, what I want the pilots and stuff to be like, what if there's any hard rules or anything. But for the most part, I do think I want to let Nori just explore and try different things. I'm doing a similar thing with Myron where make whatever music you want to because you know the vibe. I trust you. You're an excellent musician. I feel the same way about Nori. He's an excellent artist. He's got the brain for it. I'll let it be a sort of playground and try things, but I do have some ideas like mainstay characters like, I got to have a main like mascot character for the game and stuff. I think I'm going to come up with that design mostly myself and do a terrible 2D like chicken scratch sketch. I'm a terrible 2D artist, which is why I'm getting Nori for this. But I'll do a little like sketch or something. But other than like the main mascot, I've got some ideas of like what the pilots could be like and some, this type of person or this type of robot or something. Just general sort of ideas, but for the most part, I think I'm okay with letting Nori have fun and design some stuff. So
cool. And then last thing I think we should talk about gameplay wise is just my favorite aspect. I think that you've switched up from F-Zero X and GX is the different boosts for health and the boost bars, the different refillable pads for that. Because in F-Zero X and GX, it's the same. You go over the pink strip, refills your bar, and then you use your health for your boost. But this, you separate them, and I think it can lead to some really cool track design because you as the player, if you're low on health and on boost, it's like, okay, do I want to risk it all to go faster or restore my health here and lose some spots? And I just think that's a really cool kind of twist on the formula that's still staying true to kind of that risk reward system, but is totally unique in its own way.
Yeah, so that is one thing. I've mentioned it before where the unified health and boost, I honestly think is very much a part of like F-Zero's iconography. Like ripping that 1-to-1, I feel like would be boring as a designer and it would be like way too on the nose. So I wanted to find a different way of providing the same sort of gameplay experience, the same sort of like decisions that you would make throughout a race, but in a different way. And that was just one of the first ideas that I came up with, and I tried it and I prototyped it for a while and it didn't feel right. But then the eureka moment was splitting the refill zones into two as well and having them parallel. So you had to like choose one or the other. And like you said, yeah, it'll be fun to come up with track designs. I've already got some like prototype tracks that aren't in the demo or anything that I'm really messing with the formula, the established formula of always having the refillers at the end. Well, I've got some prototype tracks where like there's not even a health refill zone in the entire track. So like,
that's awesome.
Like you go fast or you die. So and there's other things that I'm doing too, like having boost refill zones a bit earlier on the track, and like it'll be really fun to play around with. And I honestly do think it's a cool change because the more and more I see other people play the game and the more I think about it, the more that I realize that it kind of promotes a really aggressive style. Like whenever you KO other racers in my game too, I give you both health and boost. So like constantly push forward and just try and snowball as much as you can, destroy other racers, get a lot of boost, go fast, and it just kind of it promotes a really aggressive style of racing that I think is fun, because in F-Zero, if you boost a lot, sure, it's cool that like that's also your health meter, but then you're like always on a razor's edge. You get the refill zone, you're back up to full health, so you're not really in danger anymore. But I think it's really cool to like have 2 bars. If you get hit by the AI a ton or hit some walls and you're really low on health, but you still want to go as fast as possible, you just gotta deal with being on the razor's edge for the rest of the race, getting boost and foregoing health. So I think it's a cool little twist that should be a lot of fun to design around, and has been a lot of fun to design around, but should continue to be fun, I think.
It reminds me a lot of the Burnout series, Burnout Revenge. That was a big mechanic in that as well.
Yeah, I played, I think, the first 2 Burnout games quite a bit back in the day on the GameCube.
They still hit.
Yeah, it's a fun series.
Yeah.
All right, last thing I got to ask. You said this game belongs on Switch. You can't commit to anything yet as far as a Switch version. I think it absolutely belongs there. What can you say about wanting to bring Aero GPX to Switch?
I can say that I want to bring Aero GPX to Switch, but I can't. As of right now, like I just want to be as honest as possible throughout this entire process, especially since I'm kickstarting it and everything. Is I don't want to make promises that I am not absolutely sure that I can keep at this point, and I haven't been approved for Switch development. I haven't really partnered up with anybody capable of Switch development or anything yet, so it's not something I can promise. I say that Aero GPX belongs on the Switch. I absolutely want it there, but I can't like commit to anything. It is a goal. Whether I get there or not remains to be seen, but yeah, I'd love to have Aero GPX on the Switch. Would absolutely love it.
And Chris, you were saying that it runs well on the Steam Deck right now, so that's pretty close. That's getting there.
It's getting there. No, I mean it's remarkable how we were driving down to Virginia a couple weeks ago, and my wife was driving, and I was in the passenger seat, and I think I played that round of cups in the demo. Probably, I think I did every single like iteration of vehicle type that you could pick, just
Awesome.
to see how they all felt. But yeah, it's unbelievable how well it runs on the deck. It would feel at home on the Switch, but yeah, obviously, there's that has its own host of it's not as open, its own host of hurdles you'd have to get around for sure.
There is a natural. Sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
There is a natural process that you kind of have to follow, especially as an indie dev like me, where you're very unlikely to be accepted by Nintendo for development on the Switch without an actual like released game on a different platform first. Like I could partner up with somebody else, but that's a whole nother thing too. But yeah, there is a process there. It's pretty closed down for a reason, I think, and I'm just glad that it kind of runs well on the Steam Deck for now. Honestly, for the people that have a Steam Deck, it'll scratch that itch. But yeah, eventually, hopefully.
Cool. Hopefully. Well, we're going to move on and talk about some F-Zero, but before we do, and I'll give you another chance to plug at the end of the show, but where can people follow you and check out Aero GPX's development and the demo and everything?
So right now you can go onto like the Steam store and you can search Aero GPX and it'll be there. You can play a public demo. I have a Discord that's also linked on that store page that you could join up and a chat about the game and share your feedback with me, and I'll read it. I read basically every message that's sent in there, so that's really cool too. There is a Kickstarter. It's funded right now, so only if you've got the cash to burn. If you want to throw some money at the project and hit some stretch goals, because there are some pretty fun stretch goals I think would be pretty cool to have in the game. But honestly, play the demo. Let me know what you think. That's the main thing that I'm concerned about at this point, because I want to make the game as good as I possibly can, and feedback really helps me with that.
Have you gotten
follow-
any like major pieces of feedback that you're like, oh shit, like this is, like this is a game
There's been
changer? Or
Yeah, there's been some bug reports that I've gotten that I honestly really need to look into. Like the game is apparently taking like 20 minutes to boot up on some like two people's computers so far that I've found, which is weird. I need to look into that. But there have been some really big pieces of feedback that kind of, I don't want to say like rocked me to my core, like, oh man,
yeah.
what am I doing? But there have been a couple of things that people have said that I've kind of like, okay, that's like a really good idea. Or just small little things like in time trials, like people are already grinding time trials right now. And there's a guy who was like, why not just make the restart just happen instantly? And you just go back to the starting line. Doesn't reset the music, doesn't like do all these things. It literally just resets the timer, gives you a 3-second countdown, and you're time trialing again. Time trialing again. And I was like, that's actually brilliant. I'm just doing the same thing that every other game has done for their time trials before, where like you hit the restart button and it kind of fades out, fades back in, does like the cinematic camera shot, and then the 3-second countdown. It's like, get rid of all that fluff. People are there to like grind out time trials. If they're restarting, like make it happen as instantly as possible. And I was like, you're right. You're right.
Yeah.
So there have been like a couple of really awesome bits of feedback like that have been really cool. So yeah, if I can do a call to action for one thing, it's play the demo, come into the Discord and share your thoughts with me, because that's just really useful information.
Yeah, and we'll have all those links and stuff in the show notes too, if you're listening on Spotify or watching on YouTube, to go check Aero GPX out. But let's talk about F-Zero for a little bit. Mostly I think X and GX. Those are the ones that the three of us here are the biggest fans of. I put a lot of time into the original on SNES, but then the Game Boy Advance ones I think is where the series starts to lose steam a little bit. But really, also those games just feel a lot different, because the like boost and health being intertwined is only in X, GX, and AX, and then it's like, oh, you get a boost per lap in all of the other ones. So it's just a little different. And there's that weird anime spin-off that the anime never came here, but the game did, and it's the Game Boy ones are a different animal. But F-Zero X came out on the Nintendo 64 in 1998. And Aaron, I know from our conversation last year, this is the one that you've spent the most of your time with.
Oh yeah. I've played, I don't even want to try and calculate. I've played a ton of F-Zero X. Enough to, I've completed all the cups on all the difficulties with every single machine on both of the copies that I own, my Japanese copy and my English copy. So I have played a ton of F-Zero X. I got really into time trialing it for a while. It's by far my favorite of the series. I love F-Zero X. It started whenever I had this like VHS tape. I forget for what game it was like mainly promoting, but then they did this like little flash of like many different games at the very end of it. And even back then, like VHS tape, it could display at 60 hertz on like a television. And I remember seeing that short little flash of like 5 seconds of F-Zero X gameplay where it was like butter smooth, and it blew my young mind. I was like, that game looks absolutely insane. I need to have it. So like we immediately started renting it from Blockbuster, rip Blockbuster, and like, you know, the rest is kind of history. I was hooked ever since that moment.
The game still looks amazing. Like it compared to other N64 games. Like if you have a Switch at home and you're not really into F-Zero, because not a lot of people are, you've got to go check out F-Zero X, because it still runs smoother and looks better than pretty much any other N64 games. There are compromises to hit that 60 hertz mark. Like the track is like popping in front of you as you're in a lot of cases.
The fog, like a lot of that generation of game, is pretty thick. But it moves fast and smooth.
Yeah, and the ships themselves are very polygonal, very blocky, but I really like the style of how they look still. But all that to hit the benchmark of 60 hertz is pretty remarkable. Chris, what do you think of F-Zero X?
I mean, it's one of those. There's a handful of N64 games that when you see it on a CRT, it looks vastly better than if you're like emulating it on the Switch. because of that fog. Like the Switch really kind of like parts the kimono of like the problems that kind of exist with that game. Yeah, playing that on an N64. I mean, there were many weekend rentals from Blockbuster of F-Zero X. We didn't own a copy of it, but whenever there was we would go in and we were allowed to kind of get whatever it was that we wanted to get. If nothing really stood out, that was kind of the default one that I would pick up. Yeah, I mean, it was one of those games that like I really I played a fairly good amount of and then kind of forgot about. And then when GX came out, I just kind of randomly discovered that at a Sam's Club with my mom.
Outstanding.
And then was like, oh my God, I know what this is.
Was it like a demo on a kiosk where you're like looking?
No, they used to have like the you used to go into Sam's Club and they would have a bunch of video games for like $17, like specifically. Like it was like I remember getting that. I got Morrowind. Like there were a lot of random titles like from that generation. But like you would never see it in like a Circuit City or a Best Buy. But like I remember I would always see F-Zero GX, and finally one day we picked it up and I was like, this game is amazing. Just really got sucked into it.
If only you could still get GX for $17.
I know.
It's so expensive now. And Chris, didn't you discover you don't actually own it anymore?
Well,
when you're looking through your games?
I was going through my games. I don't know what happened to my copy, but I had the case still, and I opened it, and there was a copy of Wind Waker in it. So I ended up ordering GX on eBay, and now I have it again. But yeah, I was a little heartbroken when I went to play it the one day.
My F-Zero GX is one of those devastating copies where it's got the old Game Crazy sticker on it that says like $9.99, MVP price $7.99. I'm like, oh my gosh, $10. Whenever who had this before me bought it, and I bought it for much more than that. Yeah, those are always kind of a kick in the butt to get when you get in the mail and it's like, oh, that's brutal.
Yeah.
You could have gone to a store 15 years ago and bought all these for nothing, and now, like you were saying earlier, just really inaccessible and expensive. But my F-Zero experience kind of started with 3 years ago in 2019 when I picked up a SNES Classic Edition. I was just looking through all the games on there, and I was like, I've never played F-Zero. I've only been an F-Zero fan for like 3 years. I've never played F-Zero. And so I started it on SNES Classic and just got so hooked on that first one. I thought it was so cool to have a Nintendo series as difficult as F-Zero is kind of a rarity. Not back then, right? Like games were just harder in general on the Super Nintendo and earlier. But to have this racing game so different than Mario Kart, not casual at all, just like really hardcore, but as good as it was and polished, and it still really feels like a Nintendo game, that just really clicked with me. And I'm a racing fan. I really like IndyCar racing. So to have a game that is like, I mean, it's not really similar at all, but kind of is. And it's like, it's racing. You have to take pit stops, take these sharp corners like that. It's just really cool. So then I bought F-Zero X on the Wii U Virtual Console before it was out on N64 online on Switch. And I played that one, and I was just blown away by that game. I thought it was so incredible. There's a Rainbow Road in F-Zero X is one of the tracks, which is super cool. One of them is literally called Big Hand, and you're driving around like the 5 fingers of an enormous hand, and it's like one of them is like icy, one of them just has the slick ground, and it's like really, really, really hard track. And then there's like the randomizer cup that you unlock after beating everything in the game that just creates like very rudimentary generated tracks.
It's awful.
It's bad.
I'm sorry. Like, that's my unpopular opinion, but X Cup is terrible.
I agree. But it was still crazy to me. And I'm like, man, 20 years ago, this is in there. Like, that was something really cool. And then, of course, Japan got the expansion kit for 64DD where you could make your own tracks. I've never gotten to mess around with any of that. Aaron, have you ever gotten to play with the 64DD version, like on an emulator or anything?
I haven't enough to like remember it in a significant way. I've watched my fair share of like videos of custom tracks that people have made with the editor and stuff. But I've never really fiddled enough with it for me for a memory to stick out in my mind. I've always, dreamed of that. It'd be super sick to like to have an actual like 64DD and to have that kind of thing, but we've lamented the fact that F-Zero GX is so expensive to get now. Well, if you ever looked at a 64 DD and the expansion kit for F-Zero, guess what? It's an order of magnitude more expensive. That'd be super cool. But no, I've never really fiddled with it myself. Always kind of dreamed about it. Of course, I think we all know about the you mentioned Rainbow Road earlier. The 64 DD version of the game has an F-Zero X like arrangement of the original Rainbow Road theme that's super freaking cool if you've never heard it. But no, I've never fiddled with it, unfortunately.
Yeah. I know one person who has a 64 DD, but they don't have that game. And I'm like, oh, you got to get that game. You got to track that game down. Because they have the hardware. They're halfway there. But then F-Zero GX and AX come out in 2003, the GameCube and arcade counterparts of similar games. And actually, there was an arcade in Oregon I used to go to on family road trips, and they had F-Zero AX there. And that was actually my first exposure to the F-Zero series. Was like, we're talking over a decade ago at this point, where I go to this arcade and play F-Zero AX. And eventually on one trip there, the seat broke, because the seat had a thing where like it turned. It had a motor, so it turned with you. But then that broke eventually. But it just felt so cool to sit in that machine and drive around like the different tracks that are in that game that aren't in GX unless you either have the memory card, if you plug your memory card into the arcade machine, or beat master mode on every cup, I think.
It's something like that, because I had never gone. I recently made my pilgrimage to an F-Zero AX machine.
That's awesome.
I hadn't until like a couple of years ago, but I live in the Midwest, and I finally made a pilgrimage out to Indianapolis, where one actually existed. I don't want to say it still exists. Like, don't use me as like a geolocator for F-Zero AX machines that still work or are still around, but I did make the pilgrimage out to experience it once. But I had it unlocked on my copy on my GameCube, so it must have been something like that. I don't remember the exact criteria.
There is actually somebody has made like a Google map of every remaining location of an F-Zero AX machine, and it's kept it pretty up to date, because this arcade in Oregon, it's the AX machine there's gone. I don't know what happened to it, but it's gone. No. And I looked at the Google map and I'm like, it was removed, like it's not there anymore. So they keep it pretty up to date. There's one like 10 hours away from me, and I'm like, I got to make a trip sometime, a road trip to AX.
I do think it's kind of like a rite of passage of anybody who kind of comes in as a new fan to the F-Zero franchise, is to make a pilgrimage out to like experience an actual F-Zero GX machine, because like it's special. It's really cool. I would definitely recommend it if you've got one within reasonable driving distance or traveling distance. But yeah, that's a shame. I feel like there should always be like a candlelight vigil held whenever one, like, you know,
it's sent out to pasture.
Yeah, basically, they sent out to pasture, because like it's a shame. They're like, the number is dwindling. It's getting pretty low. It's kind of scary, actually.
It's a shame. Have you ever played one, Chris? AX?
I've never played the machine, but I have, like, there's gecko codes for Dolphin if you emulate GX, where it changes the code and then it like turns into AX, because that's really all AX is as far as the game is concerned. It's just running on Triforce. But oh man, yeah, F-Zero AX locations mapped updated. Oh, February 2021 though. Like,
oh no, that's old.
Yeah, this is old.
Been a while.
Closest one to me. Oh, they had one at MagFest.
Yeah, I think they typically have one out there.
Okay, yeah, I've never been to that. I may have to make that voyage this January.
Just bring your memory card. Imagine in 2023 plugging a GameCube memory card into an arcade machine to overwrite the data. I got to do it. I got to make that happen.
Back in time.
Yeah.
Plug it in and like.
Yeah.
Next closest one is in Detroit. Allegedly.
Wow.
I got family out there.
Man.
Hey, can I come see you for no reason? Just to come see you guys, not for anything else.
Yeah, nothing crazy.
not for F-Zero. Yeah, but then the one I still do play regularly, that's F-Zero GX. I still play it on my original hardware all the time. Like I'm still breaking that game out like monthly and playing through it. And this is my favorite one. For a while I went back and forth over if I like X or GX more. And I think I did land on GX. I love how that game feels. It's a little less slippery than F-Zero X's, I think, in its physics. And I think it's still gorgeous. Chris sent me what it looks like in 4K on Dolphin, and it's just the art direction of that game is amazing. And it looks great on the CRT also. And made by Amusement Vision and Sega, and man, the same team and director that made Super Monkey Ball, which is like my other favorite GameCube series ever. It's like, man, F-Zero GX is lightning in a bottle to me. And yeah, I adore that game. I love the tracks, and I'm still not that good at F-Zero. I can't beat Master Mode on the last Grand Prix of that thing. I can't do it. It's like I always choke in like the final race. But Aaron, what do you think of F-Zero GX?
I did say earlier that while F-Zero X is my favorite and I've played the most of it and I love it, I will say that F-Zero GX is special. There's a reason why people say that it's the pinnacle, it's the peak of like arcade futuristic racers, because it's incredible. That's really like the most basic way that I can describe it. Is it's just amazing and you need to experience it. But F-Zero X is badass. I really like it. If you want to know a cool little like nugget about where Aero GPX kind of came from, I originally I loved playing F-Zero GX with the Rainbow Phoenix in particular. I don't know if you've ever used that machine.
Yeah.
That was whenever I was like, I want Aero GPX to kind of feel like that, with a little bit of F-Zero X thrown in. And I do think that GX is special. The story mode's great. Time trials, trying to beat the staff ghosts is an insane challenge. Everything in the game is still an insane challenge to this day. And you mentioned the art direction. It's still an absolutely gorgeous game that runs super smooth on original hardware. Yeah, it's awesome. I love GX. I unfortunately didn't play it until I was in like high school, because I think there was a time where I loved F-Zero X, and then I got into like Unreal Tournament and Halo and shooters and stuff, and I kind of forgot about racing games. But then back whenever I got into high school and was messing around with like my modded Wii and stuff, I got a copy of GX. But I've liked it ever since I played it. And that was, I guess, over 10 years ago now that I played it, back in high school even. So, yeah, very special game, very beautiful and amazing.
Cool pilots too. I love the Skull,
yeah.
who died in a race, or he was the champion of a race like hundreds, and now he's reanimated as a skeleton back to win the F-Zero Cup. That was my go-to car. I always really like racing as that one.
Awesome. Yeah,
and building your own cars is cool too.
Yeah.
Yeah, the wild, weird names that would sometimes result from putting all the different pieces together.
Yeah.
But yeah, very cool game.
What do you think of GX, Chris?
It's hard. It's hard as hell. I mean, I loved that game. Not to just parrot everything that's been said. But it is one of the few at least I feel it's one of the few examples in video games where, and I think I've said it before on this show at least, the industry looked at that game and went, this is as well, and I don't want to say that with you on the show, because I think Aero is an incredible game too. But I think like
what you're about to say is still true.
People are afraid to touch it. Like, I think people are afraid to try and improve upon it, because like, how do you improve upon perfection? It's just one of those games. That being said, and I said at the top of the show, like, I think Aero GPX, like, I legitimately believe it is as close to that as we've gotten since then. Like, all these other games that I've tried to force myself to love, and it just hasn't happened, for one reason or another. I genuinely believe that, what you are doing is very special, because
Awesome.
we're dying out here, these Nintendo fans.
I know. And yeah, after GX, you had the two anime adaptations come out. Only one ever made it over here in GP Legend. I'll be honest with you, I played that game for about an hour. It just doesn't feel good.
Yep.
Maximum Velocity is okay on the GBA, but GP Legend it doesn't feel very good. And then I've never played Climax because it's Japan only. I saw it at a game store once, but it was like $100. I'll pass on that for now. But yeah, and then it's been 18 years since, with no return in sight for F-Zero. And honestly, I don't think they're ever going to. Like, I like to believe someday it'll come back, but I really think, they handed it off to Sega. They made a masterpiece, and then that's it. Like, they've never touched it again. And yeah, Chris, you're right. It's like, where do you go from there? But also, it just doesn't. They just never sold back in the day. Yeah. I think it would sell a lot better now. I really do. I think there's an audience out there that would be hungry to try F-Zero on a Nintendo platform, and I'm sure a lot of those people are the same people in the Aero GPX audience. But I just don't think that Nintendo's ever going to touch it. I think that the series is done. And if it did come back, I'm not sure it'd be like GX. I don't know if in 2022 I see this current Nintendo releasing a game that most people would not enjoy completing because of its difficulty. I just don't see that happening. So yeah, we'll have to live through indie projects like this, and hopefully GX gets a re-release. Would be really great to see if GameCube games ever came to Switch Online. But yeah, I think that F-Zero proper isn't coming back.
One thing that I've always found, I'm kind of there with you. But they've got those the ship models from Smash Bros. Ultimate now. They've got like the physically based materials. They're all updated. It's like, come on, just take those and like even just put like a small game with 15 tracks together. Like, come on.
I think that's what kills me with them, and I've gone on about Star Fox on the show. Is that it's like,
there's
just make
problems with that series.
I know, but like make a $20 game, a $15, whatever it's going to be. Like, it's not like, I don't know. Obviously, I'm not a game developer. I don't know how difficult it is. Clearly, you do, but it seems like the type of franchise that would lend itself well to this smaller, tighter experience. But one of my favorite things about Aero GX is going in, or Aero GPX is going in, and if I just want to race around, like it's not this huge time commitment. I can get in, I can do the whole cup in the span of 20 minutes or whatever, and I'm out. Not every game has to be this like 10-hour experience,
Yeah.
Definitely.
And something I love about just F-Zero in general and this genre of racing games is like something I've really found in the last few years that is like my favorite part about playing games. It's like multiple genres can accomplish this, but those tense moments of like, is this going to be the run? Is it going to be the run? And then you cross the finish line and you're like, yes, that was the run. And you never know when it could happen, right?
Yeah.
Like it could be 10 more tries, it could be 100, or it could be right now. And these things only take 3 minutes. So it's like, sure, I'll do it again. And other games that do that for me is like Cuphead. I just played the DLC of Cuphead. And it's like you're fighting these bosses. And you mentioned this about development, Aaron. It's how I feel about playing games, is just beating your head against the wall like, okay, I'll do it again. I'll do it again. Celeste does it. F-Zero does it. Monkey Ball does it. Like, when's it going to be the run? And that's something that just really scratches the itch for me when I'm playing games. Is like, yeah, these runs are all thrown in the garbage, but maybe I learned something, or maybe I didn't. Maybe it was just a terrible run that's I'm never going to think about again. But there's just something about that gameplay loop that I find really, really addicting in games like this.
Yeah, the classic just one more feeling.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Just one more.
Yeah.
For sure. I agree. That's an intoxicating feeling about a lot of these like arcade experiences that have kind of withered away as gaming has changed. The entire zeitgeist has shifted to different types of experiences. I do think that there's still a lot of value left in that type of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, that's F-Zero. We're going to move on here to EGAD's emails. We're sticking with Elliot's suggestion from last week for our name of this segment. And this comes from Elliot, the namesake of this segment, who says, thanks for considering my submission for a question segment name. I'd like to hear the panel discuss this. If you could create a brand new Mario Kart item, this is pretty topical, Elliot. We're sticking on racing games. It works. A new Mario Kart item that was based on a franchise that currently exists in Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, what would it be? So the three choices are Splatoon, Zelda, Animal Crossing. Those are the three crossover franchises in Mario Kart 8. And Elliot says, my idea would be Link's hook shot. It would shoot straight out to either grab enemies, items, coins, or if it grabs on a ramp, it speeds you up. It would be usable a few times, similar to the boomerang item. This could also be a fishing pole from Animal Crossing. So we're pitching a new Mario Kart item. Chris, I'll put you on the spot first.
So it took me a while to think of mine. My wife thought of one, like immediately. Like I couldn't believe how quickly she came up with it.
Okay.
She wanted a tornado of Waluigi's rose petals that you would like throw it and then it would like get caught up in, it would spin around different enemies, like either in front or behind you, but it would, you let this thing loose. The one that I thought was, I like the idea of throwing cloves of garlic, like Wario. And when somebody hits it, your screen gets all green and wavy and everything like that, and your controls become inverted for like a short amount of time.
Oh, that'd be a good one.
Yeah.
My idea is from Animal Crossing. I think it'd be cool if you could get the shovel from Animal Crossing and then like dig 1 or 2 holes on the track that then become pitfalls that the racers would.
That's cool.
Get stuck in the ground for a couple of seconds. So that's the one I came up with. So I don't know if it'd be like a hidden pitfall trap like the ones in Animal Crossing. I think you'd have to see it. It'd be unfair if you couldn't see the hole that you were going to drive into. But yeah, Aaron, any pitches for a Mario Kart item?
I was thinking about it, and I forget what the name of it was. I played quite a bit of Splatoon 2, but I'm horrible with like just the names of the different like equipment and technology in the game. But like, it was like, I think like the Whaler or something. It was like a special that you could use with a particular weapon that did this huge like call.
The killer whale, yeah, killer whale.
The killer whale. Like I thought that maybe that from Splatoon would be an interesting thing where like. Because as far as I remember, there's not really like an instant big like beam sort of item in Mario Kart, and I feel like just like it going out from like the front of your cart and covering like a big area in front of you in a straight line, just like a shot, just a beam, the killer whale. I think that would be pretty cool. Of course, it'd have to be something you get in a fairly low position in the race because it would be really strong, but I think that would be an interesting thing.
It's a good idea. I like that one.
Yeah,
That's
I like
also
that.
Inkling's final smash is the killer whale in Ultimate.
Oh,
that's right.
Hey, there's a cool little like cross. Like, hey, sometimes I have good ideas.
All right, send your ideas. What Mario Kart item do you want to see? Send those to toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com or send your own questions for eGads emails, toadstoolboardroom@gmail.com. And that's our show. Another episode of the Toadstool Boardroom in the books for a weekly Nintendo show here on Thursdays at noon Pacific, 3 p.m. Eastern. Next week, Sonic Frontiers will be out. Odell will be back. We'll be talking about it. We're not playing it on Switch, but it is on Switch, so we're still going to be talking about it here on the show. But for now, you can find Chris on Twitter at
Shrives93.
You can find myself at Logan J. Plants. Aaron, thanks so much for joining us. Really enjoyed talking about the game and about F-Zero. One more time, where can people find you?
First of all, thank you for having me. It was fun. I very much enjoyed talking to you guys. You can find me on Twitter primarily at AaronMac64. You can find Aero GPX, the demo at least, on Steam right now. You can wishlist it if you would like. And then I also have a Kickstarter campaign that is still going right now. You can feel free to pledge to it if you play the demo and you enjoy what you experience from the demo. But that's all I've got.
Yeah, and that Kickstarter ends on what, November 16th? Is that right?
I think so. It's a Wednesday. November 16th. That sounds correct. Yeah.
Yep, so that's 2 weeks from the day we're recording this, 13 days from the day this episode goes out. Go check it out. Aero GPX, fantastic looking game in development. And thanks again, Aaron.
No problem.
All right, and that's our show. Thanks so much for listening to the Toadstool Boardroom. Last time, find the show on Twitter at ToadstoolBR. Have a great week, and we'll catch you next time with more in the Toadstool Boardroom.